There is a dark, unspoken theater, playing out in nearly every romantic relationship, a psychological war beneath the surface of smiles and kisses. You've felt it before. The confusion, the tension, the sudden shift in tone when she asks, "Would you still love me if I had nothing S.H.O.C.KING?" Or, "Why didn't you answer me right away?" Questions that seem innocent, even playful, but they are not. They are tests, and they are ancient. They are the battlefield where desire, security, and power collide. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, exposed this dynamic with chilling clarity. He warned that we do not fall in love with people, we fall in love with our projections. And women, whether they are aware of it or not, are often testing to see if the man they've projected strength onto actually holds it. The high, brutal truth. Most men fail this test, not because they are weak, but because they are unaware they're even being tested. Let's be clear, women don't test men out of cruelty. They do it out of a deep biological and psychological need to feel safe, to feel that the man standing before them is not just a performance of confidence, but a fortress of inner stability. These tests are not always conscious. Jung described the anima, the inner feminine within a man, and the animus, the inner masculine within a woman. And when these forces clash, when your anima meets her animus, the result is often emotional chaos masquerading as ordinary conflict. What she really wants to know is this: are you governed by her emotions, or by your own self-mastery? If you falter, if you get defensive, if you react, you fail. You become just another man whose sense of self is so fragile. It can be broken by a glance, a mood swing, or a trick question. But if you remain calm, centered, unfazed, you pass. Not because you beat her, but because you prove something deeper, that you are the eye of the storm. The stillness that cannot be shaken by emotional wind. Do not underestimate this. Nietzsche warned that when you look into the abyss looks back. And when a woman tests you, she is in that moment the abyss. She is looking to see if you will drown in her or stand your ground. If you collapse, if you explain, justify, over-validate, she will smile politely, but her attraction will begin to die. This is the how dangerous paradox. Women are drawn to men they cannot control. Yet most men believe being more agreeable, more accommodating, more understanding will make her stay. It won't. What keeps her is your centeredness, your refusal to abandon yourself for approval. Because what she's really asking in every test is this: are you truly a man, or just a boy wearing his father's coat? Freud might say this is the repetition of early trauma, that women recreate their childhood wounds in the theater of love, subconsciously provoking the man to reenact betrayal, abandonment, or indifference. And if you respond with panic or shame, you step right into that role. But if you respond with immature presence, you do something more powerful than when the moment you offer her healing. Not by fixing her, but by refusing to be broken by her. This is what Jung meant when he said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But transformation is painful, because the parts of you that seek validation, that need to be liked, that fear rejection, they must die. You must become the kind of man who can endure her tests, not out of arrogance, but out of inner sovereignty. You must become immune to manipulation, not by fighting her, but by standing so rooted in your values, so sure in your mission, that no emotional storm can pull you from the ground." This is the power women don't talk about, but respect deeply. Eat. And it's not about dominance, it's about depth. The deeper you are anchored in yourself, the more she can let go of control, because women don't want to lead, not in love. They want to seek surrender, but only to a man who is strong enough to carry that surrender with honor. And here's the dark secret: if you try to earn that surrender with words, flowers, gifts, or soft promises, you will never get it. It is not earned through pleasing. It is granted through presence, through energy, through the calm, unshakable fire of a man who knows who he is even when she's screaming, crying, or pulling away. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, said it best: "No man is free who is not master of himself." If you lose yourself in the tides of her emotion, you are not her lover, you are her mirror. And mirrors are fragile. She doesn't want a man who reflects her chaos. She wants one who transforms it not with words, but with stillness. Do you feel that in your bones, that need to become the unmoved mover? It's not about becoming cold, it's about becoming conscious. About understanding that every test is a call, a challenge from the feminine to rise into your deepest masculine. But most men tragically never make it, because they are caught in the illusion that love is supposed to be peaceful, easy, free of friction. That love means always saying yes and avoiding conflict. That is a lie. Real love demands conflict. It demands trials, because only through friction do we reveal our true shape. And if you are not tested, you remain unshaped, a soft, unformed man who cannot be trusted to lead, protect, or provide emotional safety. Kierkegaard once warned of the greatest danger: the despair of not being oneself. That's what most men live in, a quiet despair covered with niceness, hoping she'll just stop testing if they're good enough. But tests don't stop. They only become more subtle. And the longer you avoid your own strength, the more those tests become punishments, subconscious attempts to shake you into awakening. Because deep down, she doesn't want to destroy you. She wants to come meet you. Not the mask, not the boy, not the performer. You, the man behind the noise, the soul behind the reaction, the fire that doesn't flicker when the wind howls. She's not trying to push you away. She's trying to see if you'll stand closer. Will you? But here's the most dangerous lie of all: the belief that if she loves you, she will stop testing you. No. She tests you precisely because she loves you. Because something in her soul is still unsure if you are the mountain she can rest upon, or just another man pretending to be solid who will crumble at the first sign of fire. You see, the feminine is chaotic by nature, just as the ocean is chaotic, and the masculine, when fully embodied, is order, presence, conscious direction. Every wave she throws at you, every contradiction, every emotional storm, every moment of withdrawal, seduction, defiance, is a divine dance. A trial not to torment you, but to awaken you. It's her soul whispering, "Can you hold this? Can you withstand me?" Because if you can't withstand her, you can't withstand the world. And she needs a man who can withstand both. This is why men fail, not in the big moments, but in the tiny, invisible collapses. When you over-apologize just to keep her calm. When you shrink your truth to avoid tension. When you nod along to opinions you don't believe. When you betray your own boundaries to avoid her disappointment. These small acts of self-abandonment, she feels them. She may not say it aloud, but her body remembers. Her trust withers. Because something primitive in her, deeper than language, realizes: he does not protect himself. He cannot protect me. And the greatest test of all is this: will you choose integrity over intimacy? Will you risk losing her in order to keep your truth? Because if you will, She will never fully leave you. But if you trade your spine for her smile, you will lose both. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What color are your thoughts when she challenges you? Do you spiral into fear? Do you collapse into anger? Or do you hold firm like the emperor of your inner kingdom? Because make no mistake, you are always teaching her how to treat you, not through words, but through what you tolerate, through what you let slide, through what you fail to stand for in the name of keeping peace. But peace without truth is not peace, it is emotional slavery. You are not here to be her emotional sponge. You are not her therapist. You are not her yes man. You are here to be the wool container so, the high king Krog, the one who can say no with love, the one who can walk away without flinching, the one who does not beg, plead, or perform. Because here is the class forbidden truth most men never hear. Women are not attracted to men they control. They are drawn to men they can't predict, men who don't flinch, men who make decisions from less principle, not emotion, men who would rather lose the woman than lose themselves. But society doesn't teach you this. Society teaches you to soften, to submit, to comply in the name of being nice, respectful, modern. And what does it get you? Ghosted, ignored, friend-zoned, while the very same woman loses herself in desire for the man who won't chase her. Why? Because he doesn't need her validation. Because his value isn't defined by her approval. And this is what Jung saw so clearly in the male psyche, the shadow, the hidden part of you that wants to be wanted, that craves to be seen, chosen, adored, that will dance, perform, and twist into 1,000 shapes just to feel enough. But that part of you is a boy, and women can smell it. Until you confront that shadow, until you own it, integrate it, and outgrow it, you will forever be caught in this cycle. Attraction, tension, testing, collapse, abandonment. Again and again. Different face, same story. But what happens when you break the cycle? What happens when you stop chasing her affection and start cultivating your center? When you stop asking, "What does she want from me?" and start asking, "What does my soul demand of me?" That's when the world shifts. That's when she sees you differently, not as a man who's trying, but as a man who is, because here's the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. A woman doesn't fall in love with what you do for her. She falls in love with how she feels in your presence. And if your presence is scattered, anxious, insecure, she will run. But if your presence is grounded, still, and clear, she will melt. Not because you earned her, but because your energy is no longer seeking, chasing, or needing. It is full. It is sovereign. And that more than any pickup line strategy or seduction tactic is the deepest aphrodisiac. So the next time she tests, you don't react. Don't argue. Don't collapse. Smile. Breathe. Remember who you are. Because that test is not the enemy. It is the portal. The doorway through which you step into your true masculine essence. Not by defeating her, but by not abandoning yourself. That is the path Jung pointed toward. Not a game of domination or submission, but a sacred dance between the conscious and the unconscious, between order and chaos, between the king and the queen. And until you master this dance, you will suffer. You will rage. You will beg. You will lose yourself over and over again, trying to win a woman who cannot love a man who has not yet loved himself. But when you master it, when you finally become that man, she won't need to test you anymore, because she'll know. You passed the only test that ever mattered. But the story doesn't end there, because even once you pass the test, even when you become the man who can hold her chaos with grace, a new challenge begins. Can you keep showing up as that man, even when love is routine? Even when the fire fades, when the texts slow down, when life becomes ordinary? You see, the most dangerous threat to masculine power isn't rejection. It's comfort. It's the quiet rot of complacency that settles in once the chase ends. Most men fall asleep here. They believe that passing her tests means the work is done, but nothing could be further from the truth. Masculine power is not something you win. It's something you practice. Daily. Relentlessly. Without applause. And the moment you stop practicing, you decay. Jung didn't speak about kings and queens in fairy tales. He spoke about archetypes. The universal energies that live inside you. The king, the warrior, the magician, the lover. These are not roles you play. They are states of being. And each has its shadow. The king, when asleep, becomes the tyrant. A man who rules through fear, who seeks control because he has lost connection to his heart. The lover, when lost, becomes the addict, always craving, always needing, unable to stand in solitude. So what happens to the man who passes the test but then forgets himself? He becomes a tyrant to his woman, or a slave to her affection. He swings between being too hard and too soft, too controlling or too eager to please, because he forgot that the greatest test is not from her, but from that's life itself. The real test is this: can you hold your center when there's nothing to prove? Can you speak your truth when it's inconvenient? Can you pursue your purpose when nobody claps for you? Because here's the truth most men ignore. If you do not lead yourself, she will not follow you. Not with her body, not with her respect, not with her love. And don't be fooled, a woman can be loyal in action while completely gone in spirit. She can cook your meals, bear your children, wear your ring, and still feel emotionally starved. Still feel like you are not her man, because she doesn't feel your presence, your fire, your direction. She feels your drift. She senses your hollow ambition. The way your eyes glaze over when she talks about her feelings. The way you nod along but don't really listen. The way you stopped growing. And it eats at her, slowly, silently, until one day she wakes up and doesn't crave you anymore, not because you hurt her, but because you abandoned your own edge, and with it the polarity that drew her to you in the first place. This is the dark fate of many men, not betrayal, but gradual irrelevance. You become safe, but dull, loyal, but uninspiring, available, but not alive. And the feminine at her core is drawn to aliveness, to dangerous beauty, to the man who walks with fire in his eyes, not because he's chasing women, but because he's chasing himself. So if you want her to keep choosing you not out of duty but desire, you must keep becoming the man she cannot predict. The man who wakes up hungry, the man who pushes his limits, who dares to say what's true even when it shakes the house, who looks her in the eyes and says, "I love you, but I will not betray myself to keep you." Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how few men have the spine to speak that way, not out of anger, but from clarity? That's what makes a woman kneel, not in submission, but in devotion. Because women don't want power over you. They want to feel your power and know it cannot be bought. That's when she softens. That's when her tests fade. That's when her walls collapse, and she offers you something no performance can earn. Her soul. Girl. But most men never reach this level because they're too afraid to walk alone, too afraid to stand in the silence between texts, too afraid to feel the void that exists when no one is praising them. So they overtext, they overshare, they overpromise. And they understand. They don't understand this simple truth. The man who can sit in the void without flinching, becomes the source. He becomes the gravity around which the feminine orbits. And that, brothers, is not a trick. That is a presence forged in fire. There's something almost mystical about a man who can hold silence without apology. Women feel it. They may not name it. They may not say it aloud. But when a man sits in stillness, calm aware, grounded calm, something ancient in her responds. She leans in. She listens differently, because he's no longer trying to impress. He's simply being. And him being in a world of endless doing is power. That silence, that refusal to rush in with explanations or fixes or soft comforts, that is the masculine void. It is not coldness, it is depth. And the feminine, chaotic, expressive, full of color and movement yearns for that void. Not because she wants to be ignored, but because she wants to be received. She wants to pour herself into something that won't overflow or crumble. She wants to know her emotions, wild as they are, can crash against your chest and find containment, not collapse. But here's where most men fail spectacularly. They mistake containment for control. They think leading means dominating. They confuse groundedness with apathy. So they play alpha, they puff their chest, they talk louder, they interrupt. But the truly powerful man, he speaks less, because he's not trying to win the room, he is in the room. He doesn't chase energy. He doesn't bend to it. He shapes it simply by existing fully in himself. Do you know what that does to a woman? It unlocks something primal, not the surface-level attraction that fades in weeks, but a deeper, soul-level hunger. The kind of longing that wakes her up in the middle of the night just to lay her head on your chest and feel safe. Because women don't want a man who always talks. They want a man who listens so deeply it feels like he's reading the language of their heart, without needing words. This is what Socrates meant when he said, "The unexamined life is not worth living, but the unexamined man, he is not worth following." And that's the truth no one wants to hear. A woman cannot truly love a man who does not lead himself, not in the loud, controlling, performative way, but in the quiet discipline of knowing what he stands for and never folding. She watches how you handle your time. She feels how you handle pressure. She notices whether your mood is shaped by hers or if you carry your own internal compass. Because she doesn't want to be your compass. She doesn't want to be your therapist. She doesn't want to be your mother. She wants to rest. But she can't rest in a man who's still seeking his identity through her validation. She can only rest in the man who has already found himself. S.H.O.C.KING. This is why Marcus Aurelius, in the quiet of his meditations, repeated to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Let that sink in. You don't need to master her. You need to master your reactivity. Because her mood will change. Her desires will shift. Her words will contradict each other. One moment she will pull you close, the next she will push you away. This is not deception. This is the feminine. And you must not become her mirror. You must become her anchor, Nia. You must become the man who welcomes all of her, the wild, the soft, the dark, the unsure, and does not change shape. In response, that's when the magic happens. That's when she stops needing to test you. Because you've become the answer to her deepest question. Are you safe for me to open? Not safe in the weak, agreeable sense, but safe in the unchanging, whole, unbending course, truthful sense. Safe in the way a mountain is safe, not because it moves with you, but because it doesn't. And here's what most men never realize. The more you hold this depth, the more playful and radiant. She becomes, because now she feels permission to let go of control, to stop leading, to stop overthinking, to stop mothering. Now she can just drop into her feminine to hueses. Now she can admire you. Now she can desire you without resistance, Castifa. But the moment you start chasing again, the moment you start adjusting your identity for her mood, she will harden. She'll start managing you, correcting you, criticizing you, not because she wants to, but because she no longer feels your leadership, Mai. That's the terrible irony. You try to please her and she loses respect. You try to be the nice guy and she becomes cold. You try to be agreeable and she starts looking for Sao, a man who can say no. This isn't about games. This is about nature, polarity, the eternal dance between chaos and structure. And the moment you understand this, not in your head, but in your bones, everything changes. You stop being afraid of her tests. You stop being confused by her contradictions. You stop needing her approval to feel like a man. Because you've seen behind the veil. You've felt the one sacred burden of leadership, so. And you've said, without words, I am here. I will not flinch. I will not fold. I know who I am, and I do not ask your permission to be him. That is the man she cannot help but love, respect, and surrender to an guy. And now we come to the final frontier. Not in the relationship with her, but in the relationship with yourself. Because here's the most shocking revelation of all. It was never about her. Not the tests, not the tension, not the power games, not the love. It was always about you. She is the mirror, the challenge, the invitation, the reflection of the parts of yourself you haven't yet owned. She tests you not to torment, but to satiate, reveal. To expose your instability, to show you the holes in your frame, to force you to meet your own weakness face to face. Carl Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Her tests are not obstacles. They are fate wearing a mask, asking you, will you evolve, or will you collapse into the same man you've always been? And if you choose collapse, you'll repeat the same cycle, different name, different face, same story. Endless attraction followed by slow death, passion giving way to performance, power turned into pandering. But if you choose growth, if you let her pressure form, you not break you, if you let every argument, every withdrawal, every seductive silence burn away your illusions, you become something terrifying and beautiful. A man with nothing to prove. You no longer chase. You no longer beg. You no longer shrink. Because you are no longer performing to be chosen. You have already chosen yourself. And this is the deepest spiritual truth that both Jung and Nietzsche understood. You must become whole before you can become loved. If you are fragmented, if you abandon your boundaries, your truth, your mission, then love becomes a drug, a false high, an escape from the unbearable task of knowing who you are without her. But when you are whole, love becomes something else entirely. It becomes a celebration, not a dependency, a gift, not a transaction, a deep, fierce bond between two sovereign beings, not a desperate search for someone to make you feel enough. And now listen carefully, because this is the forbidden wisdom that no mainstream dating coach will tell you. You must be willing to walk away from any woman, even the one you love most, if it costs you your soul. Because if she does not meet you with equal depth, if she resists your leadership because she cannot surrender to strength, if she punishes your truth with manipulation or emotional warfare, then you do not need more patience. You do not need to learn new tactics. You need to leave. Not because she is evil, but because you are no longer willing to betray the man you've become for the illusion of connection. This is the true initiation into masculine maturity. You would rather stand alone in your power than lie beside someone who demands your weakness. And when you hold that standard, when you carry that fire without apology, something incredible happens. The world shifts. Women see you differently. They feel your depth without you speaking. They sense your gravity before you even touch them. Because you have become the kind of man. She cannot test Weiss anymore, not because the tests stop, but because they no longer affect you. You no longer seek permission to lead. You no longer need validation to act. You no longer fear rejection. Because you are not waiting to be chosen. You already chose yourself, Cole. And the feminine, she bows to that energy not in submission, but in reverence. Because now she no longer has to fight. Now she can rest. Because now she has finally met a man. Not a boy performing confidence. Not a nice guy seeking approval. Not an alpha yelling over others to feel strong. But a man calm, deep-rooted. The king returned. The one who has passed the only test that matters. Take the test of himself. So let this be your warning and your liberation. Until you master your center, every woman will feel like a threat. But once you do, every woman becomes an invitation to truth, to depth, to love that is not addictive but eternal. Because she no longer completes you, she now joins you. And that, brother, that is when you finally understand the real reason women test men. Not to break you, but to meet the man who cannot be broken.